Hello everyone, welcome back to Books with Genghis Khan. I'm Ben, and today I have for you my June monthly reading wrap-up, and it was yet another spectacular month in my reading life. It seems like every month this year has been that way, and let's just keep that rolling, because I can never get enough 5-star reads or new favorite series, and I have a few of those to chat about, as well as some that maybe won't go down as my all-time favorites, but were still solid reads nonetheless. So first, I finished up A Feast for Crows. As with every George R. R. Martin tome that I've read, this one has gotten an easy 5 stars for me because it was just so utterly engaging. I love the way Martin writes. The specificity in each of the characters, whether they're a really minor character or a main character, and their personalities and their dialogue, all of the very just incredibly specific historical details and world building details he puts in. It feels so lived in, with such a deep history to this whole world and the events that are going on here. It is just utterly engaging, and I thought this might have been the deepest character work that he's done so far, and I just loved the very frequent rotation we got in the POVs between the triumvirate of Jaime, Cersei, and Brienne, since there were a lot of, I think, resonances between their POVs and the way they were all fixating on certain things in the past. They're either regretful for them or maybe just things they wish had been different or changed. And yeah, so really interesting thematic stuff going on in this book, as well as some expansions with things going on in Dorne and the Iron Islands. Speaking of that, I will be part of a live chat on Scott's channel, the Bald Booktubers channel, tomorrow afternoon. Although this video comes out on Saturday morning, that'll be later today, I think at 1 p.m. Eastern. And so that should be a lot of fun to chat about this book that I loved so much. I also got a chance to read an advanced reader copy of Bold Ascension. That is the book 2 in the Sundered Nation trilogy by Von Roycroft. So I really loved The Severing Sun, and I was really lucky to get this advanced reader copy, but this became more of a beta read where I was able to give some feedback to the author, and I was really excited to be able to play some small part in the writing process for this, and that was really cool. First time I've ever done something like that. And the series takes a very fascinating turn in book 2. This is not your average fantasy trilogy with the scope of events that are squished in here into just a few books. So I don't want to say much more since it's still a work in progress, and I'll be interested to see the final draft and maybe how it was different from this one I read, maybe based on some of my feedback. So we'll see how that goes, and hopefully we'll get a cover reveal for that one soon. I then started a trio of books that ended fantasy series, so I got a one after the next really interesting endings to really popular heavy hitters in the modern fantasy genre. The first of which was Waybound, the last book in the Cradle series by Will White. And I have never been a mega Cradle fan. It's the only progression fantasy I've ever tried. I've not really been into the shonen anime or manga that it really takes a lot of inspiration from. So I've been new to this genre, and it took me a while to get into it, but about in book 6, and a lot of those early ones are pretty short too, but about in book 6 I started to get really engaged by the character arcs and the action scenes, and started to get more of a feel for the magic and the action and how it's all working. And this book was a really fun, fitting conclusion to the series. I actually really loved it. I've seen a lot of mega Cradle fans not love the finale, but this series has never held that much tension for me. It's always felt like I expected the main character's crew to continue to advance and get more powerful. And so, I don't know, I've never felt like there was that much at stake. There was too much tension. It was just more about the fun of seeing how everything would play out. And I got so much of that in this final book. There were a lot of tense action scenes that required a lot of interesting collaboration and strategies and tactics. And so, and it ended up actually making me a little bit emotional towards the end, which told me that in the end I did come to get invested in the characters and the overarching kind of project that was this series. So it worked for me. I gave it 4 stars. solid cradle book and a fitting finale that leaves me very satisfied with the entire series. After something on the lighter side, it's good that I had that lead in to Ship of Destiny. That was the finale of the Live Ship Trader trilogy by Robin Hobb, and I do think this series is going to go down as one of my all-time favorites, one that I'm going to want to revisit and reread for certain, because this did what I truly love in epic fantasy, which is build to certain reveals that will reshape and reframe how I viewed everything that came before and would make a reread experience completely different and a new experience, and just enrich a reread experience so much as well. And so this was a convergence of major character arcs, of history, of current plot arcs in that have been building in the series, and it paid off so spectacularly. I loved everything about this book, the series, just got invested in all these different characters, and definitely had one of the most engaging antagonist characters I have ever read. So I can't wait to do a whole spoiler chat of this on Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. here on my channel with Colin's Corner, so we get into all the nitty-gritty details and about everything that's going on with all the characters, because there was a lot to take in with this, and it was spectacular. I really ended up loving Live Ship much more than Farseer, where I gave all those books, I think, 4 stars, and wasn't too sure if Hobb was going to become a favorite author, but now I think it's pretty safe to say she is, just based on the Live Ship Traders, and it is making me very excited to continue on with the Fitz books with Fool's Errand this upcoming month. If one tense, dramatic trilogy finale wasn't enough for this month, we got another with Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee, and as with Ship of Destiny, this one just worked for me on all levels. Easy 5 stars. I was engaged with this one throughout. I was a little worried going in, because you hear that people don't always love the way that Lee does time jumps in this, so I was expecting maybe more drastic time skips than we got, but it really didn't feel too different from the other books in the series. We definitely cover more years, but it didn't seem like a lot happened in those years where there was time skips, and so Lee just pared everything down to the really tense moments and events that are going on here in these clans and families' lives. And it was just working. There were some little diversions to different locations, and I was always interested how they would play in to the overarching plot. And this was so tightly plotted. Every little plot tangent ended up having a clear reason for being there and a very clear payoff. Never could predict where this was going. I definitely got emotional throughout and by the end, and it was a very fitting ending that left me very satisfied. So between this trilogy and Live Ship Traders, I finished up 2 pillars in the modern fantasy genre, and I'm so glad that they worked for me and that I could be just a huge fanboy for both of these series from now on. And I was so invested in this world and world building that I jumped right into the novella Jade Setter of Janloon after that. And I might have been better served by waiting a little bit, because this is a prequel novella that takes place just maybe a couple years before the start of Jade City, and it's very much its own standalone story. There's a couple appearances of characters that I knew, and those were fun to see, but it was fine. I don't usually love just short stories or novellas, and it was engaging. It was, I think, really pulled me in to the characters really quickly, and I cared about the single POV we got and the side characters around them. But it was just pretty good. But solid Greenbone story that I'm happy I read. But maybe I would have been better served for waiting on maybe feeling like I was missing the series or world a little bit before I read that one right after the trilogy. But still, solid, engaging novella. And then, with just a little bit of time before July starts and my captaincy begins for my readathon team in the Keymark Readathon, in the Spiffbo 9 summer-themed readathon, I'll be needing to start something tomorrow, right in July 1st, or today. And so I needed something that was short, that I could read in a few days, and so I turned to the Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England by Brandon Sanderson. That's his most recent secret project release, and I was wanting something light after the heaviness of Ship of Destiny and Jade Legacy, and this was just exactly what the doctor ordered for me. There were so many jokes per page, it felt like, especially in the first section of this book. It was such a relief. I really enjoy Brandon's corny humor, and it was just on full blast in the first part of this book. And it was a fun kind of amnesia, white room kind of story at the beginning. There's a very cool sci-fi premise that I really enjoyed how he explored it here. And then I was curious, so this book seems like it was in the tradition of some sci-fi that I've read before, like Ray Bradbury's Sound of Thunder with some time travel tourism, or George Saunders' short stories, which I've read a bunch of, which have to do with marketing, satire, and we get a lot of fun world building in here around this near future kind of money-making enterprise that is traveling to other dimensions and just letting people pay for that privilege and basically becoming wizards or gods in those alternate dimensions where it might be a similar kind of Earth to medieval England. And I like that premise. It was fun, but Sanderson then turned this, he leaned kind of away from that more literary or classic sci-fi approach, and he leaned more into his own kind of plot arc and character arc approach with characters that you kind of really want to root for and that go on a kind of hero's journey, with side characters that are very genuine and good-hearted, plucky crew that each has their own set of skills, and kind of a redemption tale of a kind. And so it felt very Sandersonian. Didn't feel all that different from the normal kinds of plots and character arcs. And I love Sanderson's plotting and the way he writes books, so that ended up really working for me. In the middle, when I felt like a kind of shift, and I realized it was going to be more of a classic Sanderson read, I was a little bit maybe confused or disengaged. But he ended up marrying these two different styles really well, and I had a good time with it. I gave it 4 stars, and it's the 4-star book that came at the right time. It was the exact kind of read I wanted in that moment. Did get invested in how things were going to play out, and that is really what I was hoping for by the end, was to care, and I did. It was a lot of fun. I laughed a lot, and yeah, solid time. It's not going to be anything that's too memorable for me, but also reading from this beautiful faux leather naked hardback with amazing art by Steve Argyle throughout. I just loved all of the little flourishes that are on so many of the pages, but Steve Argyle really went above and beyond, not just with the normal kinds of paintings you get in these illustrated editions, but with really great, humorous kind of cartoons that he would do from the Frugal Wizard's Handbook, which is more like a marketing handbook by this company, the Frugal Wizards, whatever their company is named, Frugal Wizard Inc., yes. So there was some really great paintings in here. There are scenes from the book, great end papers too. The character is a sketch artist himself of a kind, so I think these are kind of in the style of what the character was doing in the book. But amazing arts, that added to the experience, and also listened a lot to Michael Kramer's audiobook, and I love Kramer. He's a very comforting narrator for me, listened to so many hundreds of hours. So overall, exactly what I was wanting at the end of this month, for something a little lighter, but that I could still care about. So I know this book hasn't gotten rave reviews so far, but I think it did its job for me and was a solid book for what I want. If you go in with I think the right expectations. I'd read the preview chapters, so I kind of knew exactly what I was expecting. And yeah, if you go in with maybe tempered expectations, it's not like a Cosmere novel. It's maybe more satirical with more corny jokes, just thrown at you. If you go in with those types of expectations, I don't think you'll be too disappointed. Oh man, and for book of the month, that is tough. It could go to a bunch of worthy contenders, but I think it has to go to Ship of Destiny. Just an absolutely spectacular conclusion that had me on the edge of my seat for most of it, but I just ran through the last few hundred pages because I had to know how it was going to end, and it did not disappoint. I was so sorry to have to leave this series behind, and I hope as we go through Realm of the Elderlings that this series and characters and things that come from this don't get completely left behind. I'd love to see some events or characters reappear because it was such an amazing time I had with it. So much depth, elegant writing, and just really suspenseful plotting and characters of all different kinds that I cared so much about. So what a wonderful book and series. All right, that was my reading month of June. Let me know what some of your reads were in June, some that you really loved or didn't love, as it were. But yeah, if you are interested in joining the readathon, you can sign up anytime within the next couple days, I think, at the Keymark Readathon. I'll put the link to that Discord in the description. You just have to hit the roll for the Spiffbo 9 Summer Readathon to join and be placed on a team. Or you could just try to message AR with them and try to get on a team within the next few days. And I think I'll be reading some self-pub books that could count for some of those prompts, like Becoming a Druid, which I just got my hands on. I love this naked hardback design by Mike Mullman, and I think this is going to be one in a similar setting with maybe a similar tone to Frugal Wizard's Handbook, so I might not read it just yet to give myself a little space between this one and the one I just had, but I'm excited because there's going to be a buddy read for this one. I'm going to read a bunch more, so it should be a packed, fun month ahead, and I'll catch you later.